Let's start. And we've opened the phone lines and we've also said to all the political parties, please do come on, have your say. We're delighted to be joined first up this afternoon on Talk Drive, Sir Mark Spencer, current Farming Minister and former Chief Whip in Boris Johnson's government. Sir Mark, a very good afternoon. Welcome to Talk Drive.
Jeremy, how are you?
Not bad for an old man, my friend. I've got a great question for you. Shall I ask it first or last?
Whichever you like, you're in charge.
Who was the better Prime Minister, Sir Mark Spencer, Rishi Sunak or Boris Johnson?
You know what? I think they were both pretty good for their time. I think, Boris was absolutely fantastic for Brexit. He delivered that deal. He got a deal when nobody else could. He also developed the COVID vaccine. He really did deliver for that moment that we found ourselves in. But now, post-COVID, during Ukraine, we do need now someone with the intellect and with the financial ability that Rishi has to drive us forward with the economy.
Do you believe that Rishi Sunak, is in the last chance saloon? Serious question. And I don't mean that. We'll talk about the manifesto in detail in a sec. Many critics, and I'm not talking about D-Day, I'm not talking about specifics. It's just one gets the feeling, the demeanour, the approach of the Tory party almost to many people looks like it's inevitable, the loss that all the opinion polls say you as a party will suffer.
Well, so I honestly don't believe that. I think we're still in the game. I think we're 3 weeks to go. We're going to fight for every single vote. When you look at the manifesto and the offer that we're putting out there, we're clearly on the side of working families. We want to try and grow the economy, look after families so they can get back to work, so they can keep more of the cash that they earn, in contrast to the Labour Party that want to tax them with over £2,000 worth of extra taxes. So I think, we're on the right side of the economic argument. And if you've got the economy right, then you can fund the great public services that we have. And that, put very simply, is the plan that we are delivering.
Now, you say on the right side of the economic argument. If you're OK to take a breath, as I will as well, let's just play a clip of Rishi delivering some words about the Tory manifesto early today.
The first rule of Labour tax rises is that you don't talk about tax rises. But we know that the policies Labour have already announced will require them to increase taxes on working households by £2,094. My friends, families cannot afford that, and it is our job to make sure that that doesn't happen. We are cutting taxes for workers, for parents and pensioners. We will pay for permanent reductions in taxation by controlling the unsustainable rise in working age welfare that has taken off since the pandemic. National insurance tax cuts are already worth £900 to the average worker. And we will keep cutting taxes in the coming years, meaning that by 2027, we will have halved national insurance to 6%. That is a tax cut, my friends, worth £1,300 to the average worker.
So, Mark, I'm not saying that the things that Rishi Sunak has put forward have not been costed and will not appeal to certain voters. Let's start with the cut to the 2p in national insurance. He said there, in a while, they will have halved that national insurance figure, worth £1,300. He also threw out something he threw out in that leaders' debate the other day, saying that the Labour sort of approach where they're not being specific about how much everything can cost, and that's an age-old argument against the Labour Party, will cost each working family £2,094. Is that a fact or not? Because an awful lot was made of that figure after that leaders' debate, wasn't it?
So there was a bit of mud thrown around it in that some people said, which is factually true, that they weren't all Treasury figures, which is actually factually correct. They weren't all Treasury figures because some of those figures were actually Labour Party figures they put in their own documents. Some of them were official government figures that are already being announced, and then the bulk of them were actually officially Treasury documents that had been analysed for their commitment. So when you add all of that up, and then you take away what they've already said they will do in terms of tax increases, you're left with this huge bill, which equates to every working household over £2,000.
I mean, I said yesterday, and you'd understand this, Mark, when we're broadcasting in the middle of an election, we have to, quite rightly and quite properly, talk to all sides and see all sides. I was brought up, I'm 58, to believe that the Tory party, I said it yesterday, was about low taxation, a secure border, strong military, fiscal and financial responsibility. You would understand people's cynicism, Sir Mark Spencer. He can stand up and talk about a 2p cut in national insurance. He can talk about, we're suddenly going to help people buy a house with a 5% deposit. It's model on Help to Buy, but you know what? We're going to cut stamp duty for first-time buyers. All of these things, right? But then you look at where the country is, with the highest taxation in 70 years, with mass problems with immigration, with a military that's on its knees. And I suspect, and I'm just putting this to you as a Conservative minister, that many people don't believe the Tory party of 2024 is what the Tory party is and has always been. And I think that, if I'm being honest, is the issue in the country. I think most people are probably aware that you can promise the earth, as Labour and others have done, the Liberal Democrats yesterday, for example, and it has to be paid for. But I feel like people think that the Tory party is not what the Tory party was.
So in our DNA, all of those things that you have listed there are in our DNA. But we have been through a global pandemic. When we had to try and put this safety shield around people to protect their jobs with furlough scheme, which cost billions and billions of pounds. That was not something which Conservatives naturally want to do in terms of spending that amount of cash, but we had to do it to protect people's jobs and the economy. That has left the country in a very difficult financial position. Now, when you're in those tricky spots financially, what you actually need is a very strong Conservative government to guide us back to the chosen path, if you like, to get the economy back on its feet. Now, we're just starting that process. We've just got inflation back under control. We're just starting to grow faster than other parts of the world. Now is the moment not to put that at risk and go back to square one with Keir Starmer. Stick to the plan because the plan is working.
All right, let's put it another way. Let's talk about the optics, okay? You're very honest, and I like that because I think it's important. Let me read you a text straight away. This is what I suspect you in the Conservative Party are dealing with. Alison, afternoon, Jez. I'm yet to decide who to vote for. As for the Conservatives, why now with all these tax cuts? And the Farming Minister on about the £2,000 increase from Labour. That was debunked last week. Please, these politicians need to give me more for my vote. There is a cynicism, right? I understand about the pandemic. I get that. I would counter, maybe I would say this, and this maybe won't sound so great. When you were giving away all that money for furlough, which as you said was sort of very un-Tory-like, do you think the government at the time I'm not being disrespectful to the British public because, I'm 58. Of course you have to pay it back. You can't just print 400 billion quid's worth of money or we're all screwed, right? Do you think people were naive enough, or do you think the government did enough to explain to them that money would have to be taken back? Because I don't think the government did. I'm being honest in that instance.
I think the great British public actually do understand these things. They understood that the furlough scheme actually protected literally millions of jobs. Now, if we allowed those jobs to disappear, we would have destroyed the economy. Never mind crash the economy, it would have been destroyed. We would not have recovered for that for 2 generations. We were able to protect ourselves and the economy in doing that. But there was a high price to pay, and now we've got to try and repay that money and build the economy without passing that on to our children and our grandchildren. We've got to try and deal with that economic cost going forward. Now, we have a plan that is dealing with that. That plan is just starting to bear fruit, which is why we've seen inflation come down. We've seen the economy starting to grow faster than Japan, Germany, Italy, the US. We're in a reasonably good place on the start of an incline in our trajectory. Now is not the moment to put that at risk because Rishi's just got us back on a stable footing following COVID in Ukraine. Let's not go back to square one, start taxing families and putting people out of work, which is what the Labour Party do.
If that's the case from a Conservative point of view, how depressing is it that you're on average 20 points behind in polls, that many papers and media outlets are saying it's a done deal? Nigel Farage said when he announced his candidacy 10 days ago, he was on this show as well last Monday, he said this election is done. This is about a creditable opposition. Are you telling me, Sir Mark Spencer, that people in the Tory party still believe this is worth fighting for? Because
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Every day, Jeremy, I am out there knocking on doors, talking to people in my own constituency, and I can tell you there are still a lot of people who want to make their mind up. There are clearly people who are quite grumpy with us, who are naturally conservative, who are thinking about what they want to do in the future. But there is a sort of growing, if you like, drumbeat that they don't believe what Keir Starmer is telling them. They don't think that he is the answer. They don't see a credible answer when he's asked a question. He dodges the question. And I think slowly but surely they're starting to...
But I'm not sticking up for... Mark, I'm not sticking up for Keir Starmer. I'm sat right in the middle and on the fence. I'm doing what you're supposed to do in broadcasting. But such a bad job have the Tories, I suspect, in people's eyes made, hear me out, that he doesn't have to say anything. It's that Ming Vase policy. Just don't say Jack, because at the end of the day, you can't fall by the wayside. I think Diane Park in Huddersfield, and I want to put this to you because I think this is what your campaign is all about. She says, read the manifesto. I have one question for the minister. If they can do all of this now, because there's an election, why the hell have they done nothing like this in the last few months? Now, you're going to say pandemic. Yeah. I'm going to say the government's job is to explain to people, and I'm not sure people know enough about why you feel or have felt we were in the position we were in. Do you understand what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, I do. I fully understand. And you sort of summarise the challenge that we face. Now, the manifesto is about the next 5 years. So clearly, all of those things in that manifesto, we can't deliver in the first week following the general election. They are aspirations that we will deliver through the next Parliament. So we can't do all of those things straight away, because you've got to try and build the economy, build up the income from taxation by making more people employed, by making them better off, giving them more of their money so they can spend it themselves, and it becomes self-fulfilling. So you build, if you like, the ability of the state to fund the brilliant public services that we all want to see.
In terms of the next 3 weeks, one thing before I let you go, we know about the polls, we know about the manifesto, we've talked about, more help with youngsters buying houses, we talk about all these things, 2.5 GDP in defence. Would you like your leader to have given more sooner? Do you... I listen to the passion in your voice. I would never want the United Kingdom to become that presidential thing in the States, but when you listen to Boris, or you watched Maggie, or you watch Blair, you watch John Smith, you listen to you. He's very technical. He's an administrator. I'm just not sure, Sir Mark Spencer, whether he takes people with him. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think I do understand the point you're making, but actually what we need at this moment in time is a Prime Minister that will give us, if you like, the difficult messages, will tell us that how things are. And that's what you get with Rishi. He won't tell you what you want to hear. He'll tell you exactly how tough things are and what his plan is to deal with that. And I think that's what we want in a Prime Minister. Not someone who tells you what you want to hear, yeah? Someone who tells you what you need to hear. And that's what you get with Rishi.
Final before you go, objects thrown at Nigel Farage today was campaigning in Barnsley, an open-top bus, whatever the political side, across the spectrum. There was abhorrence the other day about the milkshake because it could have been acid. I guess you share those feelings today about those objects thrown at Nigel Farage.
Yeah, you can't, I mean, let's just have a bit of respect, because up and down the country, candidates of all political parties are putting themselves out there. They're asking for your support and for you to consider voting for them. I don't think any politician of any political persuasion deserves that sort of treatment, whether you are right-wing, left-wing, or bang in the middle. Let's engage in the debate. Let's engage in the conversation without resorting to physical violence or abuse.
Sir Mark Spencer, a real pleasure to have you on. I hope we speak again very soon. Sir Mark Spencer, Farming Minister and former Chief Whip